From the world of AV programming and control with James King, I'm Steve Greenblatt, and this is Ask the Programmer. James, it's good to be back with you. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Steve. Enjoying the warm weather as I can. And how are you doing?
Doing well. Also, I am glad we've had several guest episodes over the past few weeks, and we're going to try something a little bit different today. And we're going to act as guests, so that's going to be something new for us. But I think it'll be a good chance for us to give our audience maybe a little bit more about our background, but also try to create more of that familiarity so that we can lean into this AV programmer community that we're trying to establish.
Sounds good, Steve. Yeah. So what I actually I wanted to start this episode off with was why don't you tell us, the listeners, of your journey into AV, mainly into the programming side? Because I'll admit, I've known you for a while and I kind of gotten the pieces here, but I don't know the full story.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It is an interesting story to tell because I don't program anymore and I haven't in quite some time, but I still identify as a programmer, and programming is really what's put me and my business on the map in AV. But I actually went to school for electrical engineering, graduated in the early 90s. Job market wasn't great, and didn't really have much direction as to the job to or the field to get into, other than I wanted to use my engineering degree and was very eager to put it to use and to see what was out there. It was actually in the days before the internet, if you will, and email. So, but I answered an ad in the newspaper uh, for this little company called Crestron Electronics, and they were probably around 100 people then, including production, including shipping, including everybody, all in the Rockley facility, and started working for them in September of 93, believe it or not. And that was where my journeys began. It's spent 3.5 years there. I did programming in-house at Crestron, which at the time, again, early days, it was DOS. It was the Crestron workshop. And in order to get to sell product, Crestron knew that they needed to have programmers be able to make the systems work, because the boxes didn't do a heck of a lot without the programming. So they did what they could to train integrators and bring people up to speed, but they also had in-house programmers, and people hired Crestron to do the programming. Um, so I was one of many, probably five, six, eight, around that, on that team, and we program projects, commercial, residential. The lighting, we started to find specialties. I leaned more toward commercial, and I ended up doing some very large projects there. Um, about 3.5 years in 1996, I had this idea that I was going to. My dad always told me to look for an opportunity to start a business and be your own boss, and I didn't really know what that meant at the time. And I actually just told this story recently to my business group, but I I was in a unique position to take this talent that I learned and that was in high demand, and start a business. And I was one of the first independent programmers. There were a few that I looked to that were before control concepts, but we were definitely in the first five that I'm aware of. And it just what my idea was, and what drove me was that programming projects at Crestron was good, but it was needed because they needed to sell equipment. I wanted to look at it from a different perspective of how can we make sure that the programming satisfies the user's needs, and can we do this on a more personalized level? And it's actually, if I think about it now, it's very forward thinking, because there wasn't talk about user experience. There wasn't talk about all of the customization and being able to make sure that we had advanced GUIs, graphical user interface. It was more of, let's get the job done. And so I started to build relationships with integrators. I started to build relationships down the line with consultants and eventually end users, and built a following, which allowed me to hire and to create a team. That was probably one of the biggest challenges, actually. But throughout the years, I've had some ups and downs, certainly, and I've learned quite a bit. And um, there came a time where I just couldn't wear the hat of just being the programmer and running the business, and I had to make a choice. So um, as much as it was uncomfortable for me, and as much it was also a little bit of a shock to my staff, I had to take the programmer hat off to work on developing the business, and whether that's going and finding new clients, or or putting together systems and processes, or managing, or just doing the back end work that makes a business run. That's actually been a huge learning experience. But I haven't ever given up the technical side of things, and I think programming has really been a critical part. And I wouldn't be where I am today, and I probably might not even have a business if I wasn't for programming. So that's it's kind of, in a nutshell. 27 years later, it's Control Concepts exists, and we serve now in the software development side of things, where we've moved from doing project programming to doing the building blocks that we talk about to help other programmers and help manufacturers' products uh, work together with control platforms.
That's a great history there, Steve. Well, depth and stuff. So a couple follow-up question I have is, one is, when you kept in-house programming when you were early on with Crestron. What did that look like? Well, were you programming like stuff for Crestron inside Crestron, or were you just a Crestron employee who were programming for clients?
It was a Crestron employee, and the what would happen is an integrator would sell a Crestron system, would have a project, and they would um, buy the hardware, but they would also buy programming. It was a separate line item that was defined by a basic scope of work, probably not very um, very thought out or very detailed. Sometimes because it was still very much a lot of magic that programming, that people thought of programming as being this big, nobody understood it, and they didn't really understand what it took to make the system work.
That's pretty cool. So moving into your own company, like, how was that transition? Going from somebody's paying you, you have a job, you're stable, to, you're paying yourself now, and you have to put that vision, and not only the vision for yourself and your company, but for your employees that are, now following you and joining you on this adventure.
It was so the best part about it was I didn't know what I didn't know, and that so I didn't have fears. And because in the beginning, for the first 3 years of Control Concepts, it was me, um, I really was able to do things and not have to worry about um, being responsible for others, but also not have to worry about what other people did. So because I really did every part of the business myself. So one, it was gave me a good understanding of what it took to make the business work. But the other part was that I didn't understand. my dad was the one who motivated me to do this, and he didn't give me very much um, direction as to what to expect. And that's probably a gift if I look at it and look back, because my fears would have gotten in the way. And I don't think that I would have been able to go out and do this, because I would have wanted to know all of the details and ins and outs and worry about all the things that I didn't know. And it probably would have held me back from doing it. I did have those moments, but it was while I was already doing it. So I was kind of swimming, and I just had to figure it out as I went, even though, I questioned, I didn't have a business background. I questioned that when people said, do you have a business plan? I didn't know what one was. A lot of these things, it was, I learned as I did. And the fortunate part about it was that programming was in demand. So I knew that I had confidence that I could keep myself busy and be able to earn an income, because there was a lot of demand. And as long as I kept the clients happy, that's really what I focused on.
That's nice. So another thing I picked up from hearing you here is, which I think is, where am I gonna go? Unique, and maybe I'm wrong with saying unique in a person who's a programmer, is I heard a lot of vision speaking. Like when you were a in-house programmer for Crush On, went and sought out customer experience, which wasn't a thing. And then you went out and started your own company, first independent programmer company out there, which again wasn't a thing out there. And then now you're moving from, cut a third party programmer to more of driver module, the building blocks. So that's all visionary, because again, these things aren't there already. It's not like you're following a path that's already out there. You're putting that path out there. So can you speak a little more about that with your programming in mind, or like how you came up with those visions?
I I, I do believe that I have a an innate ability, and I say that in a respectful way, because I'm certainly, I certainly feel like there's a lot that I don't know, and there's a lot that I look up to other people, and I've learned so much in the last not even 5 years than I've probably learned in the other parts of my career. But I have a bit of I I'm blessed to have a business mind that I didn't know, and I just kind of and it just kicks in, and I didn't have to think about those things. It just came to me. And when I see some people that have that, I try to point it out to them. And Brittany on my team is similar, that you just she just has a knack for it. And it's just something that I may have known about myself, but it's I appreciate you pointing that out, because it takes talking about it to realize the examples of it.
Oh, you're welcome. No, these are good examples, and it's interesting. 'Cause like I said, I don't think many programmers have that kind of vision. We see, at least in my world, and I hope our listeners can, either yell at me or agree with me, or however they see it as well. But yeah, like I can vision a whole system, but being moving from things that are never there, like yeah, I can do that with the system. I can vision and be like, okay, this room needs this, and how we can program that. But changing actually the face of programming, especially in AV, that's a unique talent, I would say. Not many of us programmers have. So that's good. So now, as you 20 some odd years, as you said, that you're kind of getting out of the programming, do you how you feel about that? Like you're moving away, your business is doing well, you're doing good, you're making a name for yourself out there, and how you feel that you're not actually involved in the tech, but you're now more of a business leader, manager, owner, and handling the more business end?
It's a bit scary, and it was very scary to make that move because if you've heard the term, like, you burn the ships, it's basically what I did. Is that I crossed over the ocean, and I burned the ship because I couldn't can't even go back to it now because it's changed so much. And certainly can't go back to it in what my company does now. It's very much out of my league. If you put me in front of a control program, I could probably work my way through some things, but so much has changed and the technology has changed. But now we're writing in modern programming languages. It's with APIs that are network based. It's a very different animal. So it's scary. And sometimes I think about what would I do next, or what would I do if I wasn't doing this. And it's hard to see what that looks like because I don't I still want to maintain my understanding of programming as much as I can, and I still continue those conversations. And that's why I value this podcast and and being part of the community, but I couldn't actually do it myself right now.
Okay, that's interesting. So knowing that you had the history of programming, but you, as you even say in your own words, that you couldn't do yourself nowadays, how are you setting up your programmers to be successful, knowing the history of programming, but allowing them to do the new stuff? Like, how do you understand, that they're doing it the right way?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's something that that's come up recently. One is you have to hire good people. You have to be able to trust them. I'm a believer in that you really double down on your strengths and you hire for your weaknesses. Not that programming is a weakness; it's just not my area of focus. And if I could clarify, I could, if I wanted to, train myself to go back to programming, but it's just very far and wouldn't be worth the effort to do. And I probably wouldn't enjoy it as much as what I enjoy doing now. But the you have to hire good people. You have to be able to trust them, but you also, and this is one of the learning lessons that I've had recently, is you have to set up a good management structure, and you have to have checks and balances and ways of being able to measure progress, and being able to know enough to be able to ask good questions, and have people report to you so that you can see if you're on track or not. And you have to have a sense for, if something doesn't seem right, you investigate. um, and but certainly trust and being able to have a team that is on board with you and is in your corner is really critical.
Oh, that's definitely good. And I think that might be a good place to stop. I mean, I think you gave us a great history and how you built your company and your background and team. And like I said, I think that might be a good place to wrap this up. Thank you, Steve. I love hearing
Sure.
about your history here.
Absolutely. If I make one more comment, about
Sure.
the visionary thing, that's funny that's what we talked about, because one of the things that we taught that is a common discussion in the business world, and I've learned more people in AV are adopting this, is this uh, entrepreneurial operating system, EOS. And they talk about having a visionary and an integrator. And the visionary is the big picture person who's always thinking down the road, and the integrator is the one that takes those ideas and puts them into practice and helps to make sure that the day to day is running well. So it's it's something that's a common term that even I was not very familiar with, until a few years ago.
It's interesting because I this is the first I've heard of it. I
Yeah.
I Might have heard it in other ways, but never explained as that, and never with the EOS tagline, but, I definitely understand that. That's pretty good. Thank you, Steve.
And if
So
anybody
if
wants to learn more about that, check out the book Traction, and there's a whole series about that stuff.
oh, that's great. I'll have to add that to my book list. Um, so see, if people were so inclined, how could they, reach out to you if they had any more questions or anything like that?
Yeah, please follow me on social media at Steve Greenblatt, the company Control Concepts at controlconcepts.net. And for you, James?
Oh, again, you can get me on the socials. I'm out there on X, AV_James King. I'm on LinkedIn. Um, when AV and the AM is going on, I'm involved with that. Anything with HEPMA, again, Google me, you'll find me.
Absolutely. And also make sure you check us out on the Ask the Programmer group on LinkedIn, which is our community that we are putting together for AV programmers to be able to converse and ask questions and continue the conversations from this episode. Let us know what you think about this. I hope that this helped a little bit to provide some context, and I'd love to answer more questions, or if anybody else wants to join and have themselves be profiled, please reach out to us. We'd be glad to have you as a guest. Additionally, as I mentioned earlier, my company Control Concepts supports this podcast, and we do provide free and low cost resources for AV programmers. So take a look. We do a lot of manufacturers, modules, drivers, and plugins, as well as some utilities. So you can find those at controlconcepts.net as well. And our podcast here is available on YouTube, the video version, and on your favorite podcast player, audio wise. And we'd love a rating review. If you could share your favorite episode or leave a comment, that would mean the world to us. And we'd like to know that you're out there. And until next time, this has been Ask the Programmer.